शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ यश्छन्दसां वृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया स्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासम् शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवम् ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिवा कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्तिः 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 So what do we do essentially in these classes every Tuesday and Saturday? We explore the teachings of the extremely ancient masters and their experiences which resulted from their lives leading in accordance to the principles of yoga. The text which we have in front of us is from the Upanishads, which are known as the mystical parts of the Vedas, the most ancient collection of teachings in India. And these 10 Shanti mantras are selected from the Upanishads. Each one of them ends with Om Shantihi, 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 peace, peace, peace. They are the mantras for peace. Mantras which the masters pronounced when they found peace within themselves, when they got settled in that ocean of peace within themselves. We study them hopefully to find a way to experience that peace within ourselves as well. The Upanishad part of the Vedas were composed approximately, I think the best thing is just to say that they were composed before, most of them were composed before the Buddha, which means they are certainly more ancient than 2,500 years. What is the upper limit? That is debatable. 700, 1,000, 1,500, whatever, more ancient than the Buddha. Why do we study them? Because it is part, and it should be part of our practice of yoga. Even in fact, before we start practicing asana, and the reason I'm saying that is that Sage Patanjali, when he lists the 8-limbed path, he starts with non-violence, truthfulness, etc., the first yamas. And then when he lists the niyamas before the asanas, the 4th niyama is swadhyaya, study of oneself. And this is essentially that. Because all these teachings, all these utterances, they are nothing but about the true nature of our being as experienced by these masters. So it is swadhyaya. That is what we understand by swadhyaya, to study about oneself. This is the reason we spend 2-3 hours every week to study, to contemplate these teachings and find practical ways to incorporate them into our yoga practice, into how we practice our asanas, and how we evolve deeper, to go deeper within ourselves into the depths of our heart. So this is the purpose. So the mantra that we have been studying since quite a few days is this 4th one which we pronounced. It is a very beautiful mantra, and I have completed it, in fact, yet it is so beautiful that I still don't want to leave it. I still want to extract the little bit of juice that is left, the few drops that are left in it. Then what we will have in the next 2 days as part of this course, let us look at that as an extended discussion of what has already been seen and expressed in this mantra. The part of the mantra in which Sage Trishanku says that I am like the beautiful, I am the beautiful and the immortal essence, the same which is present within the sun. Why I want to speak a little bit more on this? Because in this course we are doing 108 Surya Namaskaras. So what is this sun to whom we are prostrating? What is this sun that Trishanku speaks of in this mantra? What are the Surya Namaskaras about? The yogis, before they did have all these texts, before these texts were even seen, were even composed, yoga was already very much existent. These texts didn't cause yoga. These texts are the results of yoga. Yoga is an extremely ancient tradition which lies at the foundation of these teachings. So what essentially these masters were doing, in an attempt to understand themselves, they were delving deeper within themselves through yoga. But also at the same time, they were trying to understand the world out there, trying to learn from the world out there, and whatever they learned by observing the world out there, they tried to see how it can be applied, to go deeper within, to understand myself better. Yes, exactly. Like Adi Guru Dattatreya, that's precisely what he did. And that's what all of the yogis did. And you see this in every part of yoga. Look at the names of the asanas. Look at so many different things. Most of the names, they are named after various animals, after trees, after mountains. Just mentioned Adi Guru Dattatreya, who did not learn and study anything from anyone, just observed 24 different occurrences. Sometimes a honeybee, sometimes a serpent, sometimes an arrowsmith, somebody who is completely focused on making his straight arrow very sharp and doesn't even notice the whole procession of the king passing in front of him. And when somebody later comes and asks, has the king's procession gone on this side? He said, I don't know. I didn't see it. It is in that moment that Dattatreya realized this is the kind of focus and attention that I need to cultivate within myself. The whole kingly processions in ancient India, if you want to see how they look like, then look at some of the YouTube videos made before 1948, when there were still a lot of kings in India, and how their processions, with all the drums and the whole army, even today, elephants, big elephants, horses, and yet he doesn't notice anything at all. That is how focused he is. So like this, they observed the world around them. When it came to the deepest mystery that they were, I can really say it, obsessed with, the very essence of this whole being, which they called Chit. Sometimes they referred to it as Chit, which means consciousness. Sometimes they've referred to it as Purusha. Sage Patanjali uses the word Purusha, which means the essence which resides within the city. This body is like a city. So in an attempt to understand that, they found that two metaphors helped them most. The metaphor of light and the metaphor of space. Because that is how we experience the first-hand experience of consciousness. When you close your eyes, it is like that space, that inner space in which thoughts, feelings, emotions, images, memories, whatever arises, it feels like arising within a kind of a very subtle inner space which is filled with the light of awareness, because the moment something pops up, if an emotion comes, a thought comes, a feeling comes, we become aware of it. So it is like space which is filled with light. The moment you put an object there, it becomes visible. So this metaphor of Akasha, as they called it, Akasha is the Sanskrit word for space, and Prakasha, the Sanskrit word for light. Akasha and Prakasha. An interesting thing is that in Sanskrit there are extremely closely related words. As you can see, Akasha, Prakasha. Both are derived from a root which means light. Prakasha simply means intense light, and Akasha means space in which there is light on all sides, filled with light. Because pra means intense and a means from all sides. So the best way to picture consciousness, if we can picture it, then to picture it as a space which is filled with light. And this is why all the worships in the Vedic traditions are always directed, active worships, by worships I mean active worships, ritualistic worships, are always directed towards a manifestation of light. But all these active rituals, external rituals, which are directed towards a manifestation of light, are always supposed to end with a meditation, meditating on the infinite space. And this we see in the most ancient collection of rituals known as the Yajurveda, which is a long list of rituals all directed towards fire, the earthly manifestation of light, or towards the sun, the heavenly manifestation of light. But then eventually at the end, what we find, the 40th chapter is an Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, which we studied a few years ago here. A very beautiful, deep Upanishad, which again ends, in fact, with a prayer to the sun and to the principle of light. And then what we find at the very end is Om. The last mantra of the Upanishad is Om Kham Brahma, which is the mantra that is to be meditated upon at the end of all the rituals, which simply means Om, infinite space, is consciousness. Consciousness is like infinite space. Now, in these Surya Namaskaras, we contemplate and we are focused more on light than space. The next mantra, that is why I'm not going to the next mantra, because the next mantra is all about space. This mantra, the one that we just pronounced, the fourth one, still mentions light. In this Vajiniva Swamritamasmi, I am that beautiful, immortal essence, which is the same as the essence which is present within the sun. And as I also pointed out a little bit earlier, that the masters, they worshipped and meditated upon the earthly manifestation of light, which was fire, the intermediate manifestation of light, which was lightening, and then the highest manifestation of light, which was the sun. that helped them to understand that even though these three manifestations are so different from each other, one is earthly, we can have it in front of us. One lasts for a very split second, enlightens everything, makes a lot of noise, and then vanishes. The third one rises peacefully and then sets peacefully. Again in the morning, rises peacefully and sets peacefully. In their external manifestations, they are so different from each other, yet deep down as a manifestation of the principle of light, as a manifestation of that universal energy, they are one and the same. So this already helped them to understand that even if some manifestations are seemingly different, if one looks deeper and understands it, then one can become aware of that oneness, that unity present within different manifestations. And isn't it the same thing? Now, what we understand about the light out there, let us apply the same principle to the light of consciousness, which is not fundamentally different from physical light. It is just a very different kind of internal light, which like a lamp burns in the hearts of every human being and every living being ultimately. And it is this which then led them onto the path of yoga, onto the path of union, onto the path of the awareness of this oneness of all beings. The simple example that the masters sometimes give is that, you see, all the different earthen pots, they are different in their shape. Some are round, some are long, some are big. But on the level of the earth, the soil, they are one and the same thing. They have been created from the same lump of soil. Just the shapes are slightly different. So in this way, what I was trying to show through this example was just to show how consciousness, the more we understand light, the more we meditate on light, the more we think about light, the better, in the light of that understanding of light, we better understand a deeper mystery. Light in itself is a deep mystery, but this internal light of consciousness is the deepest mystery, because it knows everything and yet it cannot be known as an object. It is that which knows everything, but it cannot be known as an object. So this shows us the path that the masters took. First of all, meditating on light out there. That is what a devotee who still had a dualistic understanding, who still saw himself different from the universe, for him, for a devotee, he meditated on light out there. Many of the Vaidika mantras, they consist of such meditations on the light out there. For example, one of the most ancient masters, Maharshi Kutsa, very ancient, whose meditations are part of the most ancient collection of teachings, the Rig Veda. In one of his hymns, he says, Suryaha Atma Jagatas Tasthusascha. This sun which I am meditating upon is the very self, is the very soul, is the very essence of everything that moves and everything that is fixed. Life in its fixed form trees, plants, and in its moving form. In both forms, life, the life principle of prana, is completely dependent on the light of the sun. We usually picture prana as breath. But when we look at prana in the understanding of the Upanishadic masters, prana is the result of the interaction between light, breath, and water. All these three elements, because Upanishads are rooted in pranopasana, in worship of prana. There are the texts which lie before the Upanishads, the Aranyaka texts, the forest texts, they are all about meditating on prana. And we find that also sometimes spilling in the Upanishads. So for example, the famous mantra, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, these extremely famous mantras today, they are mantras of a pranopasaka, of someone who is meditating on prana. And the source of prana is always seen within the sun. And that's why the word prana sometimes in the Upanishads is also applied for the sun itself. Not only for the wind, but for the sun itself. The word prana is also applied. The same thing we also find in, for example, another very famous mantra, the Gayatri mantra. Om Bhurhuvasvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. I meditate on that light which should be chosen above everything else, the light of that creator, Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargaha, the light which destroys all the impurities, Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. Let it inspire my thoughts, let it inspire my actions. So this meditation on the light out there, we find this as the first step. Then as the second step, what we find in the Upanishads is a meditation on the light within. That is the second step. So if the master who most beautifully expresses meditation on the light out there is Maharshi Kutsa or Maharshi Vishwamitra, the master of the Gayatri mantra, then Vamadeva, whom we know also through an asana, Vamadevasana. It's Vamadevasana. I think Vamadevasana is there. Vamadevasana is there. Yes. He in his hymns, we find him meditating on the light within himself. Or, for example, Maharshi Parashara, in his hymns, we find this beautifully expressed when he says that the radiant beings, they were in search of the beloved. They had heard that it is omnipresent, and yet they could not find it anywhere, even though they made a lot of effort and walked a lot, searched for it everywhere, but they could not find it. But then, dhyamdha, when they settled their intellect, they realized that we are already sitting in it. One doesn't need to search for it anywhere. It's not to be found out there, but it is to be found within. So then we find in the Vedas that second aspect, that inner approach, first meditating on the light out there, which then leads to meditation on the inner light. And the ultimate goal of this journey of meditating and worshipping the light out there and then meditating on the light within, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate goal is to understand that this light within and the light out there. Both, yet they seem so different, and yet they are one and the same. And this is what we find, for example, in the teachings of Maharshi Dadhyang, the master of the Ishavasya Upanishad, the 40th chapter of the Yajurveda, when he says, the Yosavasau Purushaha, the essence which lies at the core of the sun, Sohavasmi, that is what I am. And it is in that moment that he pronounced this, again one of the most famous mantras, yes?
Is that what Krishna was talking about Shavasana, that they word and even word? Is that what you were?
So this, one of the most famous mantras again, Soham, I am that. Again, in most of the meditative traditions, before anyone even receives a mantra from a teacher, this is a mantra that even if they have not received any mantra from a teacher, they can still just use this mantra for the practice of meditation. Soham, I am that, which unites both. And this is the fundamental idea of the Upanishads, which is repeatedly expressed in the Upanishads again and again, which is also the idea that was expressed in this mantra when sage Trishanku said that I am that beautiful and immortal essence which is the same as that within the sun. So the same union, the same experience of union, the same experience of yoga, the same experience of oneness, simply to break this barrier of ego which we have created like a glass wall around us, in which inevitably in our thinking divides the world into two. I as that small little center versus everything else. You, this. Yes, for the sake of daily dealings, this is important. Ego is an extremely important tool. It is an extremely important tool, but only as a tool, only as an instrument. In yoga, we call it an antahkarana, which means an inner tool, like our eyes, ear, nose, hands, feet. They are bahya karanas, they are external tools. In the same way, there are internal tools, four internal tools, and one of them is ego. So as long as it is used consciously as a tool, it is a wonderful tool, because it gives us an inner center from which thoughts can arise, from which ideas can arise, from which all our deeds arise. So it is a completely imaginary center, completely imaginary inner center. It is a total imagination. The more we think about this ego, the more we realize that it is nothing but an imagination created again within that inner space filled with light. And yet, in our deep identification with that, we forget that we are not that ego which arises within the space, but we are that space in which the ego arises. And ego is just a tool so that we can, if I will say, instead of I, if all the time I'm using you for myself, or he for myself, then it's not practical. I have to refer to myself as I. And for practical purposes, I have also to create a distinction. But let that distinction not color my deeper understanding. So for this, the oneness with the sun is only an intermediate step, as a somewhat more focused step. The goal is to acquire the awareness of the oneness with the entire universe. But, as I repeatedly point out, that yoga, this journey of yoga is about, first of all, discovering the light within, and then connecting with it, and then ultimately to allow it to remove the darkness which fills our thoughts, which fills our heart, which fills our emotions. That darkness, let us allow that inner light to remove it. This is what the Pranopasaka, the meditators on prana, when they said, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, lead me from darkness into light. This is what they meant. And that is why sometimes the word yoga, there is another word attached to it, yoga pradipa. Yoga pradipa. You know, the light on yoga, the title, yeah, like Hatha Yoga Pradipika is also there. But Guruji's book, Light on Yoga, the most famous book of Guruji, you know, it is a literal translation of the word Yoga Pradipa. Pradipa, light, lamp. The lamp of yoga. The light of yoga. Light on yoga and also the light of yoga. And this word is very often used by Vyasa in his commentary on the Yoga Sutras. He often, very often compares yoga to an inner lamp, to a very humble inner lamp. So going back to the idea of the original idea from which we started, this idea of Surya Namaskara, this idea of bowing down in front of the sun. When I was given the Yoga Shiromani award, you know, in many years ago, the crown jewel of yoga, whatever that means. So, one of my friends said, Siddhartha, you should start writing the name Yogiraj in front of you, king of yogis. You know, so many people, so many yoga teachers these days write it. I said, I'm even ashamed to write the name Yogi in front of my name, because even that implies so much. I can't even do 108 Surya Namaskaras.
Now you will.
I even struggle in that. So even I'm ashamed to put the name Yogi in front of my name. My masters, they were yogis. They were yogacharyas. I cannot put that name. So hopefully this time, last year I didn't do all the classes as I usually do, so I didn't manage it. This year, specifically, I think for the first time today, I'm doing my class as well as the morning class together for the first time. So it's coming. So I'm very happy about it. So the point is that Surya Namaskaras are not dedicated to a sun, to a physical sun out there. Yes, even that was worshipped in ancient India. There were 5 worship traditions in ancient India. The traditions which worshipped Shiva, the traditions which worshipped Shakti, the mother goddess, the traditions which worshipped Vishnu, known as the Vaishnavas, the worshippers of Vishnu, the traditions that worshipped the sun, they were known as the Sauras, those who worshipped Surya, the Sauras, and the fifth one, those who worshipped Ganesha, Ganapati, the elephant-headed form of the divinity, which is just a manifestation of Om. But that's a different thing. So, if you look in ancient India, there are so many ancient temples still, ruins of ancient sun temples in India. One of the famous ones is in Konark, very famous. Another famous one, a very beautiful one, is in Kashmir, the Martanda. Because Martanda is another name. The city in itself is called Martanda. Martanda is another name of the sun. And like this, all over India, there were small and big sun temples. Today, that worship tradition doesn't exist as a distinct tradition anymore. Nobody constructs sun temples anymore today. Yet it is still worshipping the physical form of the sun is very much part of the culture. Even when people, if you see people go to take bath in the Ganga, they take water and give it to the sun. And there are several festivals that dot the Indian calendar which are dedicated to the sun. For example, Surya Shashti, 6 days after the festival of light, which is all about worshipping and meditating and fasting for the sun. So it's still very much part of the culture. But here we are not speaking about those traditions which worshipped the external physical manifestation of light exclusively, but we are speaking of a far more ancient tradition which, by meditating on that external manifestation, the goal for them was to become the light which is beneficial for all. Because another word for the sun is Vaishvanara. Vaishvanara means that which is beneficial for all. The sun is beneficial for all. Without any racial, ethnic, religious, or any kind of discrimination, the sun throws its light down to all living beings equally, to human beings, to the fish living in the ocean, to the birds flying in the sky, to all the creatures crawling on the ground. All of them benefit tremendously from the same sun. And that's why another name of the sun is Sama, the one who is completely equal. In the Upanishads, by observing the sun, the masters took all the ideas which are fundamental to yoga. This idea of samatva, the very definition of yoga, samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is to be equal. That idea has been again taken from the sun. To be like the sun, which is equally beneficial to all living beings. And the goal is not just to worship a ball of fire out there, but to understand what it teaches and then to introduce it in one's life. That is when the prayer of the ancient Vedic masters, when their prayer was Vaishvanara Jyotir Bhuyasam, may I become that light which is beneficial to all beings, the same like that sun. This was their prayer which inspired them. Or, for example, when they say Tantum Tanvan, perform good deeds, Rajaso Bhanumanvihi, and follow the light which enlightens this world. Jyotishmataha patho raksha dhyakrtan, and protect the paths that enable us to to become like that, the path to light. Protect those paths which have been created by the masters with a lot of intelligence. Manurbhava, become a human being. Manu is the same like man, human. The root is man, someone who thinks, someone who can think, who thinks before they do something. That is all what the word Manu, the Sanskrit word for human being, Manushya, Manava, means. Someone who thinks before they do. Someone who has the capacity. That is all that there is different from the animals. Otherwise, we are also animals. But most likely, most of the animals don't have the capacity to think of the consequences into the future. They are more guided by their instincts, by their impulses. In many things, they are far more advanced than us in their selfless love, in so many different things. But in this, I think we are quite advanced, that we can think about the consequences of our actions. We have a capacity to do that. So when the masters say, Manurbhava, just become a human being, and Janaya Daivyam Janam, and give birth to such beings which are enlightened. By which again, the path of yoga gives birth to such enlightened beings. It is the result of whatever enlightened beings we have had in India, starting from the ancient masters and then the greatest enlightened beings such as the Buddha or the great masters that have lived throughout the history and even today and who will come into the future. In the future, all of them are the results of this path of yoga. So when we do our Surya Namaskaras with this understanding, with a deeper understanding of what we are bowing down to, then our Surya Namaskara becomes a form of worship. It becomes a form of meditation. It becomes a form of what we call in Sanskrit yajña. Yajña. Yajña is usually in India, it's a very well-known word. Everybody knows this word, yajña. And by yajña, if you ask anybody in India, the only thing that he will think of is fire sacrifice. To burn the fire and then put ghee and grains into it. But that is just one type of yajña. That is one type of worshipping the light. There are so many other methods. That is Shri Krishna in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a beautiful text on yoga. Dravya yajña, he says there are several types of yajñas which make use of materials. That is a material yajña, in which you make use of materials such as ghee and grains, and you offer them to the fire with the mantras, and it has a beautiful significance. But this is just one type of, a very material type of yajña, dravya yajña. Then there are worships which one does through performing austerity. And when we study austerity, which is the Sanskrit word tapas, again the third niyama, before asana, tapas, we speak of it in the context of asana, the pain and the discomfort that we experience in asana. And to endure it, to train our capacity to endure, as long as it is a healthy pain, to endure it. It is very uncomfortable.
And about the Surya Namaskara, there is the Surya mantra. Is it the same old, or did first come the asana, the movement, and then the mantra, or first the mantra, the Surya mantra, and then the asana?
That's a good question. I'm going to discuss these mantras in my next class. Today I sort of wanted to just focus more on what Surya is. And these Surya Namaskara mantras, we will study them, we will pronounce them at least once in our next class. You can in fact, you can download them because they are not in this text.
It's in the preliminary course.
It's in the preliminary course. If you have access to the internet, you can download it from the internet. I have myself uploaded a translation on my website, on all the Facebook pages that we have. So you can use that. Bring it with you today. Every one of us has smartphones. Make a smart use of that smartphone and let us use it in our next class to pronounce these mantras and to study and understand the meaning of each one, because each one of them is a name of the sun, and it is about one aspect of the sun, and that aspect of the sun teaches a lot to us, and that's why it is beautiful. Otherwise we will just pronounce them without understanding, if we ever do. But when we understand it, very likely we would want to pronounce it because the meaning is very beautiful. So we will study them in our, as far as which one came first, it's more like a chicken hen question, which is very difficult to answer, particularly when it comes to the Indian traditions, which did not really had a sense of linear time of history, but more everything was circular. So even if something new arises, for them it's not something new. It is always something that must have been there earlier, but was forgotten, and then again came into existence. And then again people forget it, then again it comes into existence. So always it's that circular view. So it's very difficult to say which one came first. It's very difficult to trace the origin of the Surya Namaskaras. Some people say that Surya Namaskaras in their present form were as late as 1925. But I don't know who and why they have concluded this. It's, I think the action themselves, it's widespread all over the country. The Pahalwans, they usually even, when they do danda, they are doing the same action. And these actions, they have been coming down from ancient times. And most of these asanas, Uttanasana, Adhomukha Shvanasana, these are very ancient asanas. So, at best, that question has to be left unanswered. Yes?
About the Surya Namaskar, is there a text or book that you reference where they come from?
That's, as I said, it's just part of the traditions. I have not seen any text. Again, these namaskaras, the names are found in the mantras, in the ancient texts. The namaskaras are found in the ancient texts, but not to my knowledge.
How did they find their way into the yoga?
There was, I don't know if it is still available, but there was a small booklet from Swami Shivananda about Surya Namaskar. But I don't know if it is
If it still exists, if it's still...
because it was really old,
See if they're in the bookshop.
You see if it's available.
It would be interesting. I mean, I have tried to find an answer to that.
Most books show the positions,
Yeah,
but
the
they
mantras.
never,
No, never,
reference
never.
where it actually came from or how it got into
No, no. But again, the same problem exists with all the asanas, with all the names of the asanas. We can't date any asana. No asana. Any asana that is there. Now, Guruji students want to name one asana after Guruji.
I see.
Yes. So they want to name. I don't remember how it is called. And Guruji used to practice that asana very, very much. When you are on the head and go back with the legs and stretch your legs. We just did it a few days.
Viparita Dandasana.
Viparita Dandasana, yes. Viparita Dandasana. they say, those who are advocating this change of name from Viparita Dandasana to Sundara Rajasana. Yes, it's becoming a group on Facebook, very active, and sort of preparing and approaching all the different Iyengar yoga teachers around the world and requesting them to come together to change at least the name of one asana. Whether that succeeds and whether that is accepted in Pune or not, that's a different thing. But
you know, when first, it was at the time, even before Shivananda, before Light on Yoga came, I mean, there were many asanas which had no name, and Guruji has given names to, and some are different than other traditional names and like this. And so one very early, much early, and one of the first photographs which were done in Guruji on asanas, not what is in Light on Yoga, even much older. And he used to come with those photos to Swami Shivananda and showed the photos to Swami Shivananda. I saw that album, and I was asked to, because I was able to write Sanskrit, so I was asked under each photo to write the Sanskrit name of the asana. And there were quite some asanas, which again he changed the name.
Later on.
So, for example, Ardha Chandrasana was at that time Ardha Chakrasana.
Ardha Chakrasana. Still you find it as Ardha Chakrasana.
Like this, and then also Virabhadrasana too was completely different. So he went on changing, because there was many asanas, they were not available. So, and he made them in groups and to Light on Yoga and gave the names, because so many asanas, they had no names.
Yeah. I think mostly the classical number has always been 84.
Yeah, so
and these classical 84 poses had names, and all other names were different names in different traditions, and yeah. Yes.
It's just when you talk about that, I just have this thought that comes for Surya Namaskar. Couldn't we say that it's like an active form of Ishvara?
Very active form.
The sun is what we are.
Yes.
And you were saying during your philosophic words that one Maharishi, I don't remember who, said God is just a higher version of myself.
Yes, that in the Upanishads.
And you were talking about this need that we have to have a pure ideal, clean ideal.
Yes.
And the Surya Namaskar is just 12 flexion of the spine, and it's where we have all the information. So it's like repeating all the time, I am light, and kind of opening the spine to, this is, what would you say about that?
Beautiful, beautiful. That's indeed what it is. That's indeed what it is. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, please.
There are many versions of Surya Namaskar. Are there asana can be done just like not be done in Surya Namaskar, because there's so many different versions?
Mataji.
But
he's asking about the different versions of Surya Namaskara, because you talked about the different versions today in the class. One version which is there on the airport.
I don't know, that is the classic, they call it the classical version. And Guruji all the time said Surya Namaskar has to be a dynamic
pose, yes.
So that's why he did all these fast movements. I don't know.
But in Shivananda, there is the right leg and then the left leg. So every time one round is divided into two. That's probably where I did this.
We never did, I really don't know.
And there is the low lunge.
Any dynamic basically could be Surya Namaskar. Any dynamic asanas could be Surya Namaskar.
Any dynamic asana can be called Surya Namaskara.
No.
I think it is still this very, very flow, which is called Surya
That's
Namaskara.
the dynamic we call
Vinyasa.
vinyasa.
For that we call
So it's a vinyasa, like other.
Yeah, yeah.
See,
But Surya
there
Namaskara is
a lot of
still.
variations, like you do Surya Namaskar, you do in between the jumping to the standing postures, doing including the back bends, including the forward bends.
Each one of them has a bowing down in it, except Urdhva Mukha Shvanasana, in which we are bowing up to the sun. But otherwise, each one of the postures is really a namaskara in different forms, whether we are just folding our palms, namaskara, whether we go down, completely bow down with our head, whether we are in Adhomukha Shvanasana, still it is bowing down, or when we are completely straight, still in Chaduranga, still we are bowing down. So everything in that is bowing down. So it's very much namaskara. Yes?
You said that Surya Namaskar is not dedicated to the actual sun. So what is it?
No. I didn't say that. I just did not want it to be to be directly related to that one particular tradition, which was a tradition in India which worshipped the sun only. That was my point. Otherwise, yes, as an external manifestation, that is the sun. But my point was that let it be more understood as a symbol to something deeper, to something greater, to something which lies within ourselves. Not just as a ritual which worships the physical form of the sun out there. Then it becomes a very physical thing. But with a deeper understanding of what it means, then it becomes deeper. Yes, please.
This is why we close our eyes when we meditate, is to let the inner light more visible. Yes. This is. He said that this is what prepares us. Correct me if I'm paraphrasing you wrongly. Is this what prepares us for meditation on light? Was that what you said? So when we close our eyes to be more sensitive to the inner light.
Yes, and then in meditation we close our eyes to become more sensitive to the inner light.
That's why that practice is there, to concentrate on the deepa, on the light.
Trataka also, yes.
Concentrate on the light, and then you close your eyes to see that same light inside you.
Within ourselves, yes.
It's a practice.
Yes.
Surya Namaskar, well, we practice 108 times. So sometimes the people do this kind of activity.
Yes.
But in a traditional life, the people that practice Surya Namaskar, they need to know how many times they exactly practice today.
Yes, 108 times. Why this 108 number? That is again something that I wanted to discuss with my next class. So please be here in the next class. Hopefully we find an answer to that. Why? Because these are mantras. And every mantra has a cycle of 108. Why 108? We will answer.
108, 1008.
Yes. Yes. It's very much like a circle. Yes.
I feel like I'm recharging myself.
Yes.
Then I do other pose. I feel I use all my energy. Then I recharge again, and then I.
It's a circle. It's really a circle, very much like the sun. You see, there are 12 mantras in it. And why the number 12? She has asked about number 108. But let me just briefly answer why the number 12? Why not 13? Why not 14? Why not 11? Why 12? Because the sun, this number 12 is deeply related to the sun. In Indian traditions and in other traditions also. When one of the names, the first name of the sun which comes here, Mitra, which traveled to the west in antiquity as Mitraism. There are Mitrayams all over Europe, even in Palestine, in Israel. In Haifa, I saw the ruins of a Mitrayam. Because the Romans, they were worshipping Mitras. So that idea of 12 was deeply related even to Mitra in the West. And some people say, the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, and the way Christianity patterned itself very much on Mitraism, because that was the greatest rival it had in Rome. So
and then starting the Vedas, the sadhana 12 years.
Why this 12th number is there? Because the sun completes its circle in 12 months. And so that is why from very ancient times in India we have worshipped these 12 suns. It is the same sun in its 12 forms, which is not divided in space but divided in time. First month, one sun, second, and each sun is different. At least our experience of each sun is different. Some suns are more hot, some suns are colder. Now we have a different sun, which is for a shorter period here, which gives its light for a shorter period and is colder, is very pleasant. Then there is the sun of the summer, which is very hot for a very long period of time during the day. Today, isn't today no, it was not today. Yesterday, 2 days ago. Yes, the shortest day of the year. Winter solstice.
In China, every day we divide it at 12 hours. Because in China ancient time, 1 hour is now equal to 2 hours now.
The day is 12 hours.
We also have 12 plus 12.
No, I think in China, every day 24 hours.
24.
But in China ancient timing, every day 12 hours.
12 hours
1
only.
hour.
Okay, so
now modern time 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay.
So also,
Okay. So the whole 24 hours were divided into 12 hours.
For our system is very new system. It was divided
Very new system.
all over the world. There were many different, because there is nothing that actually divided to 24. It's just a concept that we decided
one day.
Nothing in reality.
Nothing in
is
reality is there. 24
hours.
hours, yes.
It's more normal to say you have to work 8
When
hours
we
per
decided
day.
25, then nothing would change.
Yeah,
Actually, in
yeah.
reality.
But the months are clearly, I think, the months were divided from very ancient times. And that 12th number comes from there. The 12 forms of the sun. And that is why these 12 forms are meditated upon through these 12 mantras, which are then reflected in the 12 poses.
Also in China, our body have 5 roots, energy roots, and every root are accordant to the sun.
To the sun.
So like this hour,
Yeah.
The special name and the corresponding that
Has
energy root working the most.
The most.
So we need to follow the nature rule, not to violate the nature.
Same thing we have in Jyotisha here in India, to follow the nature's rules. And that's the point, in Ayurveda also it is the same thing, yes. So like this, let us spend another hour on Saturday, today's Saturday, on Tuesday, in studying the 12 mantras. We'll pronounce each one of them, and we will try to understand the meaning of each one of these mantras, the 12 mantras. So we'll come back to this discussion. For today, let us conclude it here with the prayer for universal well-being, which is on the last page. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. Thank you very much.